Mr. Lane?
Here.
Dr. Nemkus?
Here.
Mr. Markison?
Here.
Mrs. Kreiling?
Here.
Mr. Mormon?
Here.
Ms. Davis?
Here.
Dr. Elliott is not with us this evening. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Well, welcome to fall. Weather, rain, darkness, everything that goes along with that. First, I'd like to congratulate our fall sports programs for their incredible seasons. Tennis, field hockey, football, and cross country all had outstanding team and individual success and great seasons. So congratulations, everybody. We don't have any staff reports this month, but we will be discussing our tax levy and facilities planning. I know everyone at these tables and most everyone in the room knows our world-class schools are funded almost exclusively by property taxes. Whether you think that's fair or unfair is up to you, but in Lake Forest, Lake Bluff, and Knollwood, with high property values, those values yield healthy property taxes and allow us to fund outstanding instruction. While our tax rate is one of the lowest in the state, the amount of taxes paid in Lake County and Illinois, when coupled with other state, federal, and local taxes, is substantial. We understand that. I just want the community to know. Our high school is beautiful with some great spaces. The commons, the auditorium, the pool, the front lawn. It's also an 85-year-old architecturally significant building with a lot of issues that go along with being an older building. While we have some good instructional spaces, we need more, and likely need to plan beyond the normal roofs, turf, parking lots, and windows that need to be replaced regularly to run a school. We've touched on this before, are going to talk about it again tonight, and this likely will be a continuing, very important topic for this and future boards. So, thank you. Mike?
Thank you, Ms. Markson. I will hand off to Dr. Holland.
Okay, tonight I would like to welcome Ella White, who is our overall vice president for our student body. JD is not with us tonight.
Hi, I'm Ella. I am the overall vice president, and I also play soccer and tennis for the school. For student council, we are planning to do a canned food drive this month. We're hoping to shoot for next week to do that. And also students are getting kind of ready for finals because the final schedule should be coming out soon. Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Just to rush out.
Okay.
So on Friday, we are going to host our annual Veterans Day program in collaboration with the Lake Forest American Legion. The event will be live streamed, and the link will be located on the homepage of our website. The program will take place at 12:55 in the RMA and is open to the entire school community. Community members should plan to attend, if possible, and enter through the RMA entrance. Last year was a great event. We still have student hosts and MCs for the program, and we're looking forward to celebrating our veterans. I'm very grateful to work in a school where the educational experiences of students are a priority of the entire school community. Over the year, and several years, the Lake Forest Foundation has shared in our commitment to ensure that our students experience 21st century learning, are educated in a supportive and rigorous learning environment, and that our faculty and staff have opportunities to learn and grow. Across the building, within every department, every day, our students experience the commitment of the foundation. I would like to personally thank the foundation for the commitment to every single student at the high school. I would also like to thank the board members who commit their time, a lot of time, and expertise towards a vision that mirrors and operates in tandem with the hopes we have for our students. Finally, I would like to thank the members of the entire school community for loving our students and for investing in the education they receive at the high school. Our school remains a special place because of everyone, so I also want to say Happy Foundation Month. Thank you.
I wanted to tag team on that with Dr. Holland, and I wanted to share three things. Jeff Volker is here. He's the president of the Lake Forest Foundation, and this is Foundation Month, as Dr. Holland mentioned. And there are three things that I wanted to share with you, Jeff, and two of those are things that I have witnessed inside the building, and both as a parent and also as an administrator going into the building at different times, that we would not have if it weren't for the foundation. So the new art tables that are in the art spaces are functional, they're attractive, the seating is appropriate, and they have really changed that space. The other one, in the academic wing of the buildings, the science tables, that these science tables have fundamentally changed how the teacher is able to teach. So Dr. Allen and I had an opportunity to go in and visit one of the classrooms. It's wonderful to see an excited teacher. You love that. But even better than that is to see students on appropriate seating with mobile tables that they can slide into different configurations. And the teacher is exuberant, I think, is probably the best word for it, about how many things that she is able to do now that she was not able to do without that furniture. So the final thing I wanted to share is that in the course of considering a master facility plan for the district and visiting other communities and their high schools, as Mr. Marcus had mentioned, we have an amazing building. It's an 80-some-year-old architecturally significant building that's recognized as the most beautiful in the state, that is tired in certain parts of the building. There's no question about that. What our tours underlined for us, and Mr. Lane and Mrs. Crowley and I visited several different high schools, is that we are far more reliant on the foundation than our peer districts are to provide things like our science table and like our art tables and all the technology that the foundation has provided over the years. So the ability for our teachers to dream, for them to apply, or students to apply for things. That is the fun stuff in some ways, but in our district, it is the necessary things that the foundation not only supplements but provides for the district. And so that was one of the aha moments for me. So I want to say thank you to you and to the entire foundation for coming out tonight. But more importantly, for all of the work that you and your team have done over many years. It's made a significant impact on the high school. So thank you. And now, Mr. Folker, you can go home and have the rest of your evening there, or you can stay for the rest of it as you wish. So there's part 2 of the superintendent's report. There's some information that came out this past week that I wanted to share with the board. The Every Student Succeeds Act, ESSA, we received our designation from the state of Illinois relative to this. This is the successor act to No Child Left Behind. Most people in the nation know what No Child Left Behind is. Few people know what ESSA is at this point. Key provisions of it is that it retains universal testing, both in the elementary grades and also at the high school. It returned a great deal of authority to the states. That was one of the big wrestling matches that they had, in addition to whether or not they were going to continue with the universal testing. Another thing that is retained within the law, that was one of the very few parts of No Child Left Behind that was actually a good thing, was they retained significant focus and emphasis on subgroup performance, so that individuals that are being, and groups of students that are being poorly served in communities across the nation, that they would not be unseen again. So, Illinois' plan, there are designations that were communicated this past week, and there are 4 different levels: exemplary, commendable, underperforming, and then the lowest performing. And what's interesting about these is the exemplary. This is the top 10% of schools. Our high school is in the top 10% of schools. We're at 98th or 99th percentile, irrespective of what sort of measure you want to look at. But I'll talk about this in a little bit more detail later on. Is one of the significant weaknesses to these types of designations is the arbitrariness of it. So on the top end, exemplary is the top 10%. Why the top 10%? Why not 25? Why not 50? Why not 1? and that is an arbitrary distinction that somebody is making. Likewise, on the bottom, lowest performing, this is the bottom 5%. Why 5? Why not some other number? And then the state of Illinois is also going to assign letter grades beginning next year, A through F, and that is something I want to talk about in a little bit more detail in just a minute. So within these designations, there are two key factors. There are academic factors that make up 75%. Graduation rate is the largest of these. Again, these are arbitrary distinctions. Science is currently 0%, and they are figuring out how to do that still. The other portion of it is student quality. This is 25%, and the fine arts is currently 0. Again, they know it's important, but like so many people, how do you measure that meaningfully? They don't know how to do that. They've selected a number of other things, so it's not just test scores. To go backwards a little bit, the graduation rate, this is one of the ways where our high school excels at again at the very tippy top of schools statewide and nationally. We have an extraordinarily high graduation rate. Our school was deemed exemplary, and I want both the board and the entire community to know that that needs to be taken with more than a grain of salt. I think it's more like a shovelful or two. So we still don't know why we are exemplary. We know that the state has said we're exemplary, but we don't have any idea why that is. So it's like getting a grade in class, but the teacher not telling you, yes, this was done well, or this is done poorly, and you had points for this, or you had subtractions for that. We have no idea when we are going to receive that information about these are the numbers that are assigned to that rubric. The state also has a long history of changing the metrics. They've done this already through this process. They are understaffed, and they are really not staffed to the point where they're going to provide us meaningful feedback on a consistent basis year after year after year. So it makes school improvement measures really difficult. Also, the timeliness of their feedback. One of the things from PARC was a promise that we are going to have your students take PARC, and we're going to turn that around, and you're going to be able to use that to help your instruction. And it would come months and months and months late for that. And then also, it is absolutely subject to whoever happens to be in office or whatever the party is that's in power at the given time. There's a history of problems with these major initiatives. No Child Left Behind was really an unmitigated disaster. Every school in the nation was going to wind up being a failure. Race to the Top was another one. So No Child Left Behind was a Bush era. It was bipartisan, a Bush era initiative. Race to the Top was an Obama era initiative. It likewise did not do what it was expected to do. The arbitrariness is the thing that I think is the key point here. So ACT tells us, for example, that college readiness is 30%, while we have 46% of people getting degrees and 70% of kids enroll in college. So somewhere something is wrong. Likewise, the state has required schools to battle with them about what college and career readiness looks like. The cut scores, what happens with every single test that comes out. Our kids take the ACT, all the results go to Springfield, and then somebody sits in the room and says, this is the score that's going to be meets, and this is the score that's going to be exceeds expectation. Every single standardized test, somebody has to make a determination of what that looks like, and it might change year by year by year. And so by giving credence to these sorts of designations, you're really ceding a tremendous amount of authority to somebody that doesn't necessarily merit it. And then name, blame, and shame, that was the name of the game. no pun intended for No Child Left Behind. Letter grades are coming next year, and they will be based on a bell curve. If we were to do school like the state is going to assign grades, we would be committing malpractice educationally. What that means is if one district gets an A, another one has to get an F. And one of the questions I talk about with teachers from time to time when I have a chance is, how do you feel when everybody in your class gets an A? What's that, how does that come across to you? And some people say, or people in the community will say, yeah, well, it looks like the teacher didn't do a very good job, or I didn't do a very good job. Actually, if every kid in your district, in your room got an A, you did a heck of a job. That was your job, to connect with them and have them be successful. So having a letter grade that juxtaposes somebody's got to fail, that is a failed model in education, and it's not a helpful one for the district either. So what do we know and what are we doing? And this is what we should be focused on, and not some outside force telling us. So we want to have every student get a guaranteed and viable curriculum, every student be college and career ready. Last week was the open doors. That kind of meaningful engagement for our kids is unbelievably important. And so giving kids these opportunities to go out into our community and experience these things. We had a record number, about 350 students went out into the community this past week. A really critical one that we talk about all the time is participating in co- and extracurricular activities, that every single kid be involved in their school in a variety of different ways. This we know has an impact. And finally, we are committed, we have been, and we will continue to be committed to social and emotional learning for every student. We've embedded things into our freshman PE classes, our sophomore classes, where kids are going to demonstrate that they are applying social and emotional learning strategies to their life. What does that look like? Self-regulation, time management, goal setting. All of these things are all part of meaningful social emotional learning. Call it executive functioning, call it what you will. We have specific plans for all of this within the district. We did a mission and vision and goals. We did milestones. That's our work. Our strategic plan and our building plan, that's our work. That's what matters, and that's what matters to our kids individually and also collectively. So that is my grain of salt for the designation from the state. I don't want to draw too much attention to it this year, because next year it might be some different thing, and in neither year will we necessarily know the why behind it. So this right here, what's on the screen right now, this is the meaningful work of the district that we're actually doing. So that completes the superintendent's report. Thank you.
You got any questions for Mike about this? I had a couple. If you didn't, you could answer them. You could sit. So I thought the cover page of the high school report card, it says, we did not measure growth this year. I thought that was one of the key criteria. Why didn't they measure growth, or why didn't they use growth as a criteria?
The growth is a significant factor on that, and we don't have any information about the why behind any of the scores on any of it, whether it's chronic absenteeism, student growth, or any of those things. We don't know those yet.
But they specifically said they didn't measure growth for high
Yeah.
schools. They just did for elementary. We don't know why.
I don't know why yet.
And then those, can you go, well, you can't go, but can you go back from those weightings that you had?
Right.
The 75, those pages with the 75-25 on it? Yeah,
Yeah.
either one. So when you say you don't know, but, so you didn't submit our SAT scores, our graduation rate, our English learner proficiency, you didn't submit those scores?
Oh,
Yeah,
they have our SAT scores. We don't know of that percentage. It counts for 10%. We don't know whether we got all 10% of that, or 9 or 8 or 7. We don't know. Our graduation rate, we don't know of that 50%. We have no numbers assigned to any of this yet, and we don't know when we're going to get them.
Tell you, 100% graduation rate is
Nope,
You get a 100 point. You
No.
don't know what you need to do to get 100 points.
exactly. They told us the weights, the formula, if you will, but we have none of the item analysis for any of it.
But we do have our own information. For example, our graduation rate was 97%. So we know
That's really good.
That's really good. So we do have a sense of where we fall in line with those, with what's shared.
Yeah, so we know that we're in the 98th or 99th percentile of all schools in the state of Illinois on the SAT, for example. But we don't know what that yields in this formula. We know that our graduation rate is one of the highest in the state, but not what it yields in the same thing for each of these
So,
indicators.
I understand, and I agree. I've heard you say it enough, and I agree. We should focus on those last things on the slide. But this is what people in the community, parents, people thinking about moving into the community, the report card is one of the comps they use. So exemplary, awesome. I think we should
Right.
take credit for it. But I'm just curious, when you asked, when you said, hey, we don't know how you, what was the answer
Right.
you got from,
Every single high school in the region does not know the answer to that.
but what did they say when you asked the question?
It's coming.
Coming, but we don't know when.
We don't know when. Yep. Now, we knew that the designations were coming on October 31st. They actually came out on October 30th. We don't have any date at all on when we're going to get the particular item analysis done.
And the A to F, Mike, won't that be, I mean, it could be, I mean, it's doubtful, but if every school in the state were meeting or exceeding these expectations, no one would get an F, right? So it's not really a bell curve.
Oh, I think that it is very unlikely that it will be anything but a bell curve. I think that we will be,
Worse.
I think that the intention is to take, there'll be an algorithm that is created that will say these are your local peers, and this is how you stack up against them in some way. That's how that is currently conceived.
Report card. They're not going to,
And that is an Illinois-specific desire. Other states have not chosen to do that. Okay?
any other question?
Yeah, I wanted to say that I fully understand your point. And again, I got to spend a lot of time last week with the District 65 folks while they were talking to potential candidates. And Dr. Sophie was echoing your, I don't know what exemplary means, and now I don't know what it means for next year. So I understand all of that. But I feel the need to pause and say thank you, because you have talked to us, Dr. Holland and Mr. Simic, over the last 3 years about so many of the measures that we're seeing reflected here. And I understand there's still a lot of detail we don't have, but there was nothing in that report that you hadn't prepared us for. There's nothing in that report that you're not working every day. And I just need to pause and say, I knew I can now draw the straight line to what equity means in terms of the achievement of all of our students and why we need a guaranteed and viable curriculum. I understand why you spent so much time helping the community conform to what absenteeism means and to address what might be considered chronic absenteeism. You brought in course preparation for the ACT and now the SAT. And you've done amazing work along with Jim Sullivan in terms of moving us forward with college and career readiness. The leap forward in last year's program to this year's program with Open Doors and the programs that I see coming on the rest of the year, extraordinary. And I've left, I think, for me, the best for last, which is right-sizing the graduated supports so that our kids in the building who have any kind of special needs, whether it's an IEP, it's a 504, are getting intervention, they're getting clear direction about what we need to give them so that they can see it, and then succeed, and we're providing that to them. So I get it. I'll take the entire shovel full of salt, but you should pause for just a minute and say, there was nothing in there, no measure that was a surprise, and you're working every one of them every day, and we're really, really grateful to you and to all of the faculty.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Are there any members of the public who would like to address the board? Oh, hi, Lori. go to the podium and just say your name in the microphone so we... I'm sorry, before you start, I don't want you to think we're rude, but this part of the meeting is for us to listen and hear, so we're not going to be able to respond to what you say. We are going to take what you say back and consider it, but don't take it as rudeness if we don't reply
understand.
to questions. All right, thank you.
I understand there will be a handout that I'll leave with all of you.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right.
Good evening. Good evening. I'm Lori Rose, a Lake Forest resident. I'm addressing you this evening in my official capacity as president of the League of Women Voters of the Lake Forest Lake Bluff area. Prior to joining the League, I spent many years as a practicing attorney, 8 years as a member of the Lake Forest School District 67 Board of Education, and 4 years as secretary of that board. My service included attendance at annual conferences presented by the IASB, the statewide Illinois Association of School Boards. The IASB drafts policy which often becomes legislation. I am here tonight to urge you to take appropriate action on the Student Safety Protection Resolution, which is currently pending before the IASB. This resolution, which will be voted upon at the annual IASB conference in Chicago on November 17th, authorizes the IASB to advocate for new legislation which would allow trained teachers and administrators to carry a licensed firearm in school when students are present. The proposed resolution presents potentially fatal consequences for students, teachers, administrators, and public safety personnel. The American Federation of Teachers and the National Education Association opposes guns in schools and the arming of teachers. Law enforcement officers entering a building in an emergency might mistake an armed teacher for a school shooter. FBI-derived data from the Violence Policy Center demonstrates that only 20% of the shots fired by trained police officers hit the intended target. If arms were present in our schools, students, particularly those with emotional wellness issues, might find ways to access the weapons. Furthermore, police identification of school shooters is rendered much more difficult when many individuals possess weapons. The League of Women Voters of Illinois has studied gun violence for many years. Our position is articulated in the material accompanying my statement. I'll provide a copy of that to you tonight. Many school boards, notably Naperville Community Unit School District 203, have considered and opposed the Student Safety Protection Resolution in public Board of Education meetings. The League of Women Voters of Illinois and the League of Women Voters of Lake Bluff, Lake Forest urge you to follow their lead. Tonight, I'm asking you to convene in a public forum prior to November 17th and vote as a board to oppose the proposed IASB Student Safety Protection Resolution. I also invite you to attend our November 11th program entitled Gun Violence, Local Impact. In addition to Dr. Ingrid Weimer from Lake Forest, our distinguished panel of experts includes Dr. Colleen Cicchetti from Lurie Children's Hospital, Roman Bookberger from the Lake County Sheriff's Office, and Sarah Kniznik from the Illinois Council Against Handgun Violence. Our November 11th program will take place at First Presbyterian Church in Lake Forest at 2 p.m., and our panelists will take questions from the audience. I'll leave a copy of this statement and the Illinois League official position regarding gun regulation with all board members and the board clerk for insertion into the meeting minutes and the record. I'm grateful for the opportunity to address you, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to address the board? Go ahead. Just go up to the podium and say your name.
Good evening. I'm Casey Murray. I'm a junior at LFHS and the co-captain of the Lake Forest High School sailing team. I rise this evening to petition for an athletic study hall pursuant to my active membership on the Lake Forest High School sailing team. My application is grounded in Chapter 105 of the Illinois Compiled Statutes, Section 27(6) of Act 5, which lays out the state's physical education requirements and specifically grants this body the authority to waive said requirements. LFHS maintains a strict policy of only excusing from PE those students who participate in LFHS-sanctioned sports. However, the relevant statute is much broader, requiring only that an aspiring candidate for excusal be involved in an interscholastic or extracurricular athletic program, to quote subsection B. as the LFHS sailing team engages in athletic competition under the LFHS colors against other teams locally, regionally, and nationally under the auspices of the Midwest Interscholastic Sailing Association, or MISA. I believe that membership on the team meets these requirements. I grant that there is merit in the argument that a certain athletic rigor and commitment must be upheld to justify the granting of an athletic study hall. Not every extracurricular activity meets the high standards of commitment that are expected of LFHS student athletes. Sailing is one of the activities that does. Harnessing the raw force of nature requires muscular power, finesse, and determination. To hone our skills, the LFHS team practices 3 times a week from the end of the school day to 6:30 p.m. The vast majority of regattas run for an entire weekend. Each of the fall and spring seasons lasts 10 to 12 weeks. We maintain this vigorous schedule of practices and regattas throughout. This compares favorably to school-sanctioned sports such as track and lacrosse, which may have more practices and meets in one given week, but leave more time open during the weekend and have much shorter seasons. Restricting athletic study halls to students who participate in LFHS-sanctioned sports is fundamentally inequitable, with programs such as sailing and hockey becoming increasingly serious, maturing, as it were, to reach parity with more established sports. The policy indeed has the undesirable effect of disincentivizing students from participating in those activities, which may be where their greatest skills lie, in favor of school-sanctioned sports in which they may perform poorly. If LFHS wants to expand its athletic palette and competitiveness, it should work towards growing these programs and others like them. In fact, it has already done this by granting hockey athletes athletic study halls. Why is this not so for sailing? As a junior with a vigorous and stressful academic and extracurricular schedule, I would welcome such a study hall on an individual basis. Yet, there are other students just as deserving as myself. It is time that this body recognize all the student athletes who compete on behalf of our school and not just those who compete under its physical roof. This is more than a question of convenience. It is a question of fairness, a question of equity. And aren't those the ideals at the core of sportsmanship? Thank you and have a good evening.
Thank you very much. Are there any? No board reports tonight, so Dr. Elliott is not here. I don't believe we've had an education committee meeting since the last board meeting. Correct. Finance and Ops. David, anything to report?
Yes, we had a well-attended and wide-ranging conversation at our meeting on October 22nd. Jen and her team led a conversation about our 5-year financial projections that included 5-year capital plans, as well as 5-year technology plans. And it was a really fruitful, good round of meetings where I think we made a lot of good progress. And I look forward to sharing more of the manifestation of that work and having Jen share her good work in future meetings here.
Thank you. Policy, Ted, Diana, has policy met?
We have not met
Okay.
since our last meeting.
Okay, liaison reports. I'm going to mix it up. Diana, is there anything to report on foundation?
Well, since Mr.
Yes, sir.
Volker is here, we should definitely talk about the foundation first. It is Foundation Month, in case you guys missed it. So it has started, and on the website is this wonderful calendar that they put together that lists pretty much every day what you can play in the foundation bingo world and help out the foundation and local merchants all at the same time. So I'll give you kind of some highlights of it. Pies for Education, which is, of course, one of my favorites, is underway, and it's through J. Lovell's, and you can buy a pie for $27, and you get that's $10 back to the foundation. If you don't want pie for some reason, you can purchase one for a military family, or if you're going out of town, and that's on their website. It's under Pies for Education. Tomorrow night, if you don't feel like cooking, you can grab dinner at Chipotle in Lake Bluff. You just tell the cashier that you're there to support the foundation, and 33% of your order goes to the foundation. So no need to cook. This weekend, Kenzie Gifts is having special shopping. They have Sunset Foods doing 5% off all their sales, and J. Crew is having some foundation promotions as well. So there's just tons of stuff on that list, so please be sure to take a look at that, look it up, and take advantage of those opportunities so the money can go back to the foundation. Other things that they have of note going on right now, the Business Incubator Program at the high school has 18 teams this year with over 20 mentors, which is a record high. And the Safe and Sound group, which was 2 years ago, is actually going to be on a television show raising capital for their ongoing business. So it has taken it to the next level. And lastly, their spring luncheon is April 17th, so mark your calendars at Exmoor Country Club. So Foundation Month, in case you missed it, going on right now. Really pretty flyer. Be sure to check it out. Go log on and take advantage of it. It's this month. It's November. It's really exciting. The boosters met on October 15th. They did a photo shoot for their catalog that comes out right before Thanksgiving, and they had 50 senior athletes all participating in the photo shoot. So if you have a senior, you might see your child on the cover or inside pages of that catalog coming out shortly. Booster Palooza is their new name for their fundraiser, and it will be March 9th. They're going to have 6 bands, paddle raises, baskets, and a student band will start off the evening. So mark your calendar for that one. They gave out an estimated $12,000 in summer camp grants this year, and each kid, I believe, was eligible for $125. So my math is not my strong suit, but that's a lot of kids who applied and got summer camp grants, so they were really excited about that. And their next meeting is November 19th, and the APT has not met since our last meeting, but I will be going this Wednesday. So stay tuned for more fun parent updates.
Thank you. NSSED, Ted?
NSSED, we have not met since our last meeting. Normally, it's we're a couple of days behind them, but there'll be next week. Speaking of foundations, the NSSED Foundation, this is our fundraiser month as well. So I think I've pretty much hit up the entire board. So thank you, everyone. Appreciate your support. Everybody in the community that's watching this, contact me or NSSED Foundation directly. We'd love to have your support. On a sadder note, I do have to say that people may have heard in the news about a staff member of a school district on the North Shore who was charged with certain crimes, and that was an NSSED teacher, and the teacher did resign, and the issues involved did not involve any students at NSSED, so it's being handled appropriately. That's all I have.
Thank you. Sally, Ed Red, anything to report?
Quickly, because the legislature is not in session, I'm only going to share one thing with you. The Illinois State Board of Education, I was reading the notes from their September meeting, and I just wanted to share with you the highlights of the testimony of Dr. Tony Smith, who's the Illinois State Superintendent of Education. He was giving testimony in relation to the state's proposed fiscal 20 budget, and it falls short of the expectations around the evidence-based funding model, and I just want to share the numbers with you. The current equity gap in the state of Illinois for providing adequate funding for education is $7.35 billion for students K through 12. If you add early childhood education onto that, it would be an additional $2 to $3 billion. When the state passed the evidence-based funding legislation, they spoke about a 10-year goal of reaching full funding for adequacy, and the fiscal 20 budget, as proposed, would raise educational spending only 2%, which means that in year one of funding, they have already fallen behind. I was also going to mention to you that Ed Red actually called out the Lake Forest Lake Bluff League of Women Voters event on November 11th, but Lori did a great job of talking about that. Thanks.
Thank you. So now we move on to the...
Just one question about Ed Red. Sally, with the election tomorrow, can we expect a lot of change in... Well, I didn't mean it that way.
You mean in relation to funding?
Well, just how things are going to...
Sure.
Yeah.
What'll happen after the election is that the next legislative activity will be the veto session. And before the new legislators are sworn in, there will be one session to look at the current Governor Rauner's vetoes. And I ran through in our last meeting the bills that are at issue that he had vetoed. It'll be interesting to see if any of those get a vote to overcome his veto. The one that I keep making reference to is a bill that would set the minimum salary for teachers in Illinois at $40,000 over the next 3 years. There is apparently a great deal of enthusiasm in the legislature to try to override the veto for that. And again, while that's not the starting salary for Lake and Cook County, we will certainly see the flow on from that, because the concern of many organizations is that it will suck all of the benefit out of the evidence-based funding that's gone into the coffers of the underfunded schools downstate.
Thank you. We now move on to the action item parts of our agenda. First up is approval of the 2018 tentative tax levy. Jen, are you going to present anything on that? Or? Okay. Do you mind giving us a short Cliff Note version first, and then I'll ask for a motion?
I will, and you will get 2 attempts at this. So the board is being asked to pass what's called a tentative tax levy tonight, and they need to do that prior to adopting a final levy, in which the board will take action on in December. This is the funding for the property tax that would fund our 1920 school year and hit the tax bills next spring. As I outlined in the tentative, the memo attached to the tentative levy, some of those factors are known and some of them are unknown at this point. Tax levy is based on existing property values within the district, the value of new construction, and then the consumer price index. So we know one of those things for sure is the CPI, which was 2.1%. We do not yet have the EAV, the assessed value of property, or the new construction values until early spring, which we will receive from the county. So you are asked to pass a tentative levy, which you can see on there. We are capped at 2.1%, making an adjustment for possible new construction figures. We've asked for a little bit more than the 2.1%. In the end, we will only receive what the actual numbers will produce. So we can't actually inflate that past the CPI plus the value of new construction. But because it's estimated at this point, we're asking you to approve a little bit more. You have the opportunity to make any adjustments between now and December, which you will take final action at this point. This does fund 85% approximately of our revenue for the district.
So I'm going to ask for a motion, and then we'll open it up for any questions. So may I have a motion to approve the 2018 tentative levy?
I move that the Lake Forest Community High School District 115 Board of Education approve the 2018 tentative levy.
Second? Okay, any thoughts, questions? So Jen, just to be clear, so we're asking for, it's just short of a $950,000 increase. Is that, if I'm doing the math right?
Correct. So we will be limited to 2.1% over what we collected last year, which is approximately $772,000. And then in addition, it's an estimate based on what we would receive on new property. Because we don't yet know that number, I've estimated that at $165,000.
Okay, and the decrease in the bond and interest component, is that just the normal pay down schedule, or does that have anything to do with the refunding?
That has to do with the refunding that was done, I think it was a year or so ago, which changed our repayment schedule.
Okay.
So yes, you will see a natural decrease of that going forward.
So that's a, giving back to taxpayers, it's a $100,000 decrease in our bond and interest cost, but it still is, I just want everybody to know, it's $950,000 more that will be spread around Lake Forest, Lake Bluff, and Knollwood. Any other thoughts, questions?
Yeah. Jen, I'm assuming that you believe that the 2.32 is high enough to capture if they're off on the estimate of new construction.
I do. I actually run some scenarios on that. So the estimate I received from the county is that a new construction will be approximately $13.9 million. They've typically been fairly close, but I also ran it at $20 million, $25 million, $30 million to make sure that I have enough under the cap So I think this is plenty. I can't imagine that the county is going to be off by, double.
Perfect, thanks.
Okay, no other questions? May I have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Markison?
Aye.
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Mormon?
Aye.
Dr. Nemekis?
Aye.
Mr. Lane?
Aye.
Mrs. Carling?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next up is approval of a master facilities plan. Oopsie. Talk about that, what's included in that?
Sure, I will, and Jen can jump in. So the master facility plan is a comprehensive look at our instructional spaces and as well as where we want to be, where we may not know that we want to go yet because people come in and add value. And the convenient thing for the master facility plan in this instance, since we've discussed this in board workshops prior to the formal televised meeting here a couple of times with the board, is that we can pair this with a mandatory life safety review that we have to do each every 10 years. And so there is a cost avoidance, if you will, by pairing these two things. So the recommendation is to have Perkinson Will complete both of those. The life safety is not optional. Those are required every 10 years. The master facility plan will challenge us to think about our spaces differently. I'm confident of that. Mr. Lane and Mrs. Kryling and I have visited, along with Dr. Holland, some of our regional high schools, and one of the things that we notice is that there are some things that where we have ground to make up, even though the exterior of our building is incredibly beautiful and we have the best drive-by or drive-up in the state. Many of our spaces are very small and very tight and full of very old, unusable furniture that is not terribly flexible. So this will take a comprehensive look at all aspects of teaching and learning as well as life safety requirements.
Great. Anything else you want to add, Jen? Okay, I'll ask for a motion and then we can open. Can we ask questions after we get the motion? No, that's all right. May I have a motion to approve the master facilities plan proposal?
I move that the Lake Forest Community High School District 115 Board of Education approve the master facility plan proposal.
Second?
Second.
Okay, Sally, go.
I would like to ask Mr. Lane to talk about the reasons why he's bullish on this and what you saw during your tour of some of the schools that have master facilities plans. You've been very eloquent, and you've given me some things that that I've hung on to that are make a lot of sense to me.
Great, thanks, Sally. So, as you tour different schools in the area and look at what's happening there, and you take tours in the Lake Forest High School itself, there's no denying that Lake Forest High School does have the best drive-up, and we've got a lot of many good things going on. But a lot of what you see that we have inside of our classrooms and from area to area is not as organized or effective or efficient or as properly laid out as it could be. We've got a lot of people working very hard together to make the environment as strong as it can be. But as you look around and see what could be possible with cohesive planning, with forward thinking, with taking a step sideways perhaps before you take 3 steps forward, it can be so much better. I'm confident that we have a community that is excited about what we have going on at the high school, and I'm confident that we have a community that is ready to engage and support a more cohesive environment for our students. So as you go into different schools, you see learning areas that are modern and adaptive and iterative and exciting places to learn and to be, and to provide a great environment for learning and to learn yourself. And I mean this for everybody. I mean this for the students, I mean this for the teachers, I mean this for the administrators, I mean this for the community. We just need to have a cohesive plan that makes sure that we're spending money correctly in an intelligent fashion that not only yields all the good cohesive stuff that I want to make sure happens in this community that we all want to make sure, but actually will end up saving us money in the long run. I believe that. I think if we plan our facilities correctly, it will be a savings for the community over the long haul that'll reap benefits for the community financially, academically, and in terms of wellness and many other areas. So that's why I'm excited about it. And that's why I want us to just make sure we have a good plan going forward. So, thanks.
Any other thoughts, questions? We've had a lot of discussion about the need and the cost. I think we all agree it's needed. We're teeing it up, community. We have a lot of instructional improvements that are going to need to be made in the next several years, and I don't know what several means. But we did a lot of great things in 2006 with the last referendum. It's time to relook at our facilities in a new way. So what we asked the administration to do is give us a little more meat about what a master facility plan for a school like Lake Forest would look like. But I think we're ready to vote on the Perkins and Will, who are an outstanding architect that we've worked with many times. They know our building, they know our people, so we're looking forward to getting a great plan that'll take us into the future. Any other thoughts? So we got the motion in the second. So may I have a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Mormon?
But I do, I'm sorry, I should ask this before. Just the breakdown of fees, what exactly, because like I said, I am fully on board with the 10-year. Yeah.
10-year plan is 120 grand, so 120 of the 218.
Yeah, what I'm saying is, I'm all on board with the 10-year plan and the facility master plan, but all the other a la carte options.
Yeah, we didn't. I don't think their recommendation includes all the a la carte options that are in the Perkins and Will proposal.
So are we approving 217,900, which means we are approving all the.
That's a good. That's what I thought we were approving.
Yes, so there's a 10-year life safety, which is 120,000. There's an educational assessment that you absolutely will want. A facility master plan development, which the architect is.
Yeah, no, I'm familiar with that.
Okay.
My question
and the
was.
community.
That's a good.
The community engagement that we requested is the community engagement light, which is restricted to $5,500, not having the architect at every single meeting level of engagement.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think that's a necessity to have that. So personally, before we vote, and I thought we were going to discuss whether or not we wanted all the individual, what I call the a la carte menu.
Apologize. I thought in the workshop we discussed the light version of community engagement as something that we were going to do.
Okay.
Maybe
I just think it's getting ahead of ourselves because I think it should come back to the board before we involve the architect in any kind of engagement, or whether it should just be the board engaging the community.
I hear you. My thoughts are that I think to do this properly, knowing that it might ultimately lead to a community referendum, the community engagement, which would be led by our people here, not an outside firm, but you might need to rent facilities, or you might need to have food, or you might need to have different support. I think that $5,000 to make sure that we get engagement and get feedback, to make sure that we're going upon a path for a lot more money, may be a safe amount
Right,
to have
but
in
this 55 isn't for food or outside facilities. This is going to the
Could be for-
architect.
Well, it could be.
It's probably their
It could be for a
time.
moderator, and it could be to set up the decks and the materials that we're going to need to have those things there.
Okay.
Look, it's, I understand.
It's just, I think we're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit, but
The recommendation and the action item assumes it probably should be added to the minutes, Janet. So we're approving a proposal up to 217.9, which includes a light version of community engagement for 5,500. So
okay.
that's what we're voting on. So may I have a roll call vote, please?
Just to clarify, Mr. Mormon?
Aye.
Sir, thank you. Mr. Lane?
Aye.
Mrs. Kryling?
Aye.
Mr. Markison?
Aye.
Dr. Nemekis?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, next up is approval of the Human Resources Report. Not a big deal, but we usually get resumes in there, and there's a young man, Joseph Aquino. I was just curious if he was a graduate. Does anyone know if he was a graduate of
He
Lake
is.
Forest High School? Okay.
Yes. Shailen knows him better than I do, but he's got a sister that came through the school as well, I believe.
Okay, so she was the band, was she the band director? Because then I know who he is.
I think his sister was the
Like the-
drum major?
Two sisters.
Drum major.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're excited to bring on board Joseph Aquino as our new theater director. He graduated from Lake Forest High School and has stayed connected ever since. He's been back to help us with various events and needs that we've had. He's well-loved by the school community, and he does a great job with our students. And so we're really excited to have him on board with us in theater.
Great kid. I know him. Know his family. Great family. So, not, is that bias? I mean, yeah. I didn't know he was applying. I didn't know what he did after he left Lake Forest High School. So I was glad to see that he is coming back. May I have a motion to approve the Human Resources Report as presented?
I move that the Lake Forest Community High School District 115 Board of Education approve the Human Resources Report as presented.
A second?
Second?
2 seconds. Any comments, questions, thoughts? May I have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Markison?
Aye.
Dr. Nemekis?
Aye.
Mr. Mormon?
Aye.
Mrs. Kryling?
Aye.
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Lane?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next is the consent agenda. I'll remind everybody, any item can be removed at the request of a board member. So may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda items, including approval of disbursements, payrolls, and financial statements for September 2018, minutes of the regular meeting and workshop from October 15th, 2018, minutes of an executive session from October 15th, 2018, minutes of a board workshop from October 22nd, 2018, disposal of audio recordings from November 7th, 10th, and December 5th, 2016.
I move that the Lake Forest Community High School District 115 Board of Education approve the consent agenda items as presented.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Mormon?
Aye.
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Dr. Nemekis?
Aye.
Mr. Lane?
Aye.
Mrs. Kryling?
Aye.
Mr. Markison?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. We had one FOIA request from Jake Lempinen, a commercial request, and that status is complete. A few announcements. Friday, November 9th is the Veterans Day program that Dr. Holland mentioned at 12:55 to 1:40 at the RMA. Thanksgiving break, November 21st through the 23rd. And Friday, November 23rd is the choral performance, the tree lighting at Market Square. It's a great event. I mean, most people have been to that. Even the Bluffers, I think, go to that. It's a lot of fun where the kids the kids come back. The kids that were in chorus come back and get up there and sing, and it's really neat. Monday, December 3rd is our next Board of Education meeting right here, 7 p.m. in the boardroom on West Campus. So may I have a motion to adjourn the Lake Forest Community High School Board meeting?
Just before we do that, I want to piggyback on Dr. Holland with the Veterans Day event at the RMA on Friday. It's a great event. The kids are really involved, and it's co-hosted by the American Legion, who I'm a member. I'll be there, so if anyone wants to come sit with me, that'd be great.
So before to everybody vote tomorrow, if you haven't voted early. So may I have a motion to adjourn the Lake Forest Community High School Board meeting?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.